Why are some parts of the Bible seemingly needlessly long? In this case, I'm talking about Acts chapter 27. Well, I'm in Bethesda, Maryland. Never been here before. This is not where I wanted to film this. I'm in a hotel room right now. I really wanted to be out in nature, but it's kind of dark and dismal and raining, and I think there's a prediction of flash flooding, which is maybe a good segue into what I want to talk about. You know, for years I've read parts of the Bible and they just seem needlessly long. I mean, they just go on and they go into all this seemingly extraneous detail, and you're just like, why do we need to know this? Why is this going on for so long? You know, you've got the book of Joshua, and it just like goes on about all these campaigns that really seemingly have no bearing on our present day lives. You've got the book of Job, which is just like four guys, if you don't count Elihu, just talking, going back and forth, and you're just like, why is this taking so long? And then there are parts, maybe not so much in the New Testament, but there are parts in the New Testament where I've read them and I'm like, this chapter is going on a long time. Why does this need to be so, you're taking this much story and you're stretching it out to this. And a few years ago, for the very first time in my life, I got really excited about reading and studying the book of Acts. And when I got to chapter 27, it just felt really long. I'm like, why is this story going on? It's like, okay, Paul is a prisoner. Paul has declared that he wants his case taken before Caesar. They board a ship. They hit a storm. The storm is really bad, and ultimately the ship is destroyed. And it goes on really long. And like, why is this necessary? I'm just going to give you my theory. And it's a sense that I've had for a while. I think there are certain chapters of the Bible, certain books of the Bible. There's a lot more going on there. For those of you who know the term already, I think that they are types and shadows of things to come. There's an illusion, even though these things really happened, there's an illusion of something that's going to happen again. It's a foreshadowing of something that's going to happen in the future. Something I believe, some of these things that we've seen in the Old Testament and in the New Testament, I believe they're foreshadowing things we're going to see in the last days. The whole book of Joshua, I think we're going to see Joshua play out again at the beginning of the millennium when Jesus returns. But that's a video for another time. So Acts 27, what's going on here? I don't remember when it hit me, but I was reading it again, and it's describing the storm that they hit when they were sailing to Rome. And the word used is Euroclydon. It's like the worst possible storm. It's something that terrifies sailors. This is a storm that is so bad, there is no way you go into the storm and you lose all hope. You know, this is it. I'm going to die. There's no way I'm getting out of the storm. The ship is going to flip or it's going to sink and we're all dead. And we see this reflected throughout the story. Paul warned them in advance. He says, we should not be taking this ship. This is going to be disastrous. And of course, you know the story. They didn't listen to him and they sailed on. They hit the storm and they're in pitch black for 2 weeks. And this ship is rocking back and forth. They're doing everything they can to keep this ship from sinking. They're dumping the cargo. They're doing this. They're doing that. And at one point, some of the people on the ship think, oh, if we just get off in the lifeboats, we'll save our lives. Paul says something very interesting to them. He says, unless you remain on this ship, you cannot be saved. They were going to have to go through the storm. They couldn't abandon the ship that they were on. And, there's going to be a lot of people out there that will probably disagree with me on this. I really think that this whole story, it's a type and shadow of our walk in the last days. And we are headed into the worst storm in human history. Even Jesus said in the last days, there were things that were going to be coming that were so bad, it would be unlike anything that had ever happened in human history. And we're talking about like a world that was flooded by God. Like God wiped out everyone on the planet except a family because of the sin in the world. And Jesus is saying the last days is going to be worse than anything that's ever happened. So a lot of people think that we're in that storm right now. I don't think we're in the storm yet. I think we're seeing the storm brewing on the horizon. And, years ago, I remember somebody said something to the effect of, he thought we were in the bulk of the last days, all the things that were prophesied. And, we're seeing hints and tastes of that. But, going back to what Jesus said about it would be like a woman in labor. I don't think we're in the full-blown labor yet. I think we're feeling the occasional cramp every now and then. I think that the real labor is yet to come. Or as something I'm fond of saying, this isn't even the movie yet. This is the cartoon before the movie. So I think Acts 27 is depicting the last days and how bad it's going to be. And it wasn't just black. I mean, they couldn't see anything. They couldn't see the stars. They couldn't see the sun. And, there's Bible verses that talk about, how bad it's going to look up in the celestial heavens and everything. And at one point it says, we gave up all hope. And I think that is a picture of what's coming with a lot of believers. They're not ready for what's coming. I'm not even sure I'm ready for what's coming. And I've been trying to prepare myself for a long time. But a lot of believers are going to give up hope and they're going to abandon their faith. And we see this with these warnings from Paul that many people are going to abandon the faith in the last days. And it doesn't mean that they were never believers to begin with. They're believers, but they're still going to abandon their faith. And Jesus said something interesting. He said, those who endure till the end will be saved. What did Paul say? He says, unless you remain on the ship, you cannot be saved. We are going to have to go through this storm, and we cannot give up on our faith, no matter how bad things get. Yeah, some of us are going to be martyred. Some of us are going to go through really, really hard times. I mean, there are going to be believers that starve to death. There are going to be believers that go through horrendous things. And then there will be some who, for whatever his divine reason, God will protect and see through. But this is going to get bad. And I'm not trying to demoralize you. I'm not trying to demoralize you. And we know how the story ends. The people that were going to abandon the ship, thinking that it was going to save their lives, they listened to Paul. They stayed on the ship. It got a lot worse. And ultimately the ship, it broke up, it fell apart, but everyone on the ship survived because they listened to Paul. Every last one of them. They didn't abandon the ship, no matter how bad the storm got. So I know I'm taking like a very, very complex issue and I'm reducing it to a soundbite. I do apologize for that. But I want you to go back and I want you to read these verses. And I really want you to ask God to give you, insights on them. There's so many types and shadows, not just in the Old Testament, but like in the Gospels and in some of Paul's writings. And they're all pointing to the last days. I'll try to elaborate on a few of these points that I've brought up. I don't like taking really big issues and complex subjects and reducing them, to that. This channel is really more, I'm trying to give you bite-sized portions. We're living in really hard times. And sometimes, we don't have time for a long drawn out study. We need to hear that one thing that's going to get us through to the next day. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. I've been in this position. I've been here for a long time. There have been years where I'm just trying to get to the next day, just trying to get to the next day because things are so hard. And if you're watching this and you've had a rough walk and you feel like, I can't endure this storm anymore, I'm going to walk away. Don't walk away. You can endure this storm. Just fix your eyes on the Messiah and just take every day at a time. I've heard it said, if you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. And if you can't crawl, ask someone to carry you. And if you need to take a break, if you just feel so overwhelmed and the only option you have is to just stop what you're doing until you recollect yourself and then, take another step forward and take another step forward, then do it. That's not the advice I want to give. There have been a few periods in my life where I had to stop moving forward because I was experiencing too much trauma. And unfortunately, in those cases, because I stopped moving, I did backslide a little bit. More than a little bit. But just get back up on the horse. As it says in Proverbs, man falls down 7 times, he gets back up. The storm is on its way. Just don't be overwhelmed by it. Don't give up. Just take it a day at a time and know you are not alone. I'll leave it here for now. You're going to get through this. We are going to get through this.